Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about ownership. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, when a new feature impacts the scalability of an external service that your application is using and your manager asks you to fix the other team's service by working on their code, would that amount to not taking ownership or would you say it's outside the team's scope? Well, if I interpret your question correctly, I would say that this is one of those situations where my personal feelings on this is not always the norm, and I find that extremely annoying, as you can imagine. Let me explain this a little bit. So, something that I truly believe is the main reason as to why companies work in an efficient manner, why you have bad culture, why you have delays, why corporations have enormous amounts of problems scaling their systems and collaborating on all this stuff is this idea of ownership. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have someone who owns something, but I think that the model that most people are using is very, very warped and fairly inefficient. Because what usually happens is, as I've said to you guys before, one of the main problems that you're dealing with when you're dealing with a distributed system where you have multiple teams is scheduling and dependencies. If you ask like 9 out of 10 teams, I would say, if you ask what their number one complaint is going to be about, is usually related. Is the root of that answer will always be something like there's an external dependency, or there's some other team that isn't behaving, or something else isn't working. Everything that the software developers own within their own sphere is usually pretty fine because they feel empowered enough to be able to fix things and so forth and so forth. Of course, you're going to complain a little bit about code quality and things like that, but in many cases, almost always, there's an external dependency somewhere. And the reason why things work this way, why you have this friction, is because you have basically an ownership model that is based on the idea that this is my area, that's your area, you only touch your stuff and I only touch my stuff. To me, it's almost childish. And you see this, it's very common that this sort of behavior leads to tribalism within the organization itself. I have been on the receiving end of this so many times that I've lost count, where a team will literally behave as if almost treat me like a criminal if I'm even curious about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and so forth and so forth. Like, we're talking about serious hostile behavior over source code. Or when I ask for something, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to this, they don't answer, they don't have time, they're going to look at it later. Like, literally, that becomes a scheduling issue because I can't get them to do the thing that I need them to do because they have a million other things to do. And so when you introduce this really amazing concept where you, as another software developer, just they are software developers, you are a software developer, they're dealing with source code, and you deal with source code, and you say something along the lines of, would you be okay if I made a pull request? That is like an alien concept to quite a lot of teams. What, are you going to touch our code? To me, this is insane. Like, basically, every single software company on the planet, excluding maybe government like organizations where you like secret police or things like that, or military organizations, uses open source projects in some fashion, and they are basically built on the entire idea that you can make a contribution to that code, whoever you are, as long as you create a pull request, someone approves it, and it works, and all this good stuff, right? It's literally the thing that you are doing in every single team. Like, all the teams are doing is just that it's not someone who sits in your stand-up who does it. It's an external party. You still control the code. You can still like approve it or reject it. All of these sorts of things. And I argue, and I've been trying to pitch this in every organization I've ever worked in. If you want to have the most autonomous and empowering ecosystem that you can possibly have, with minimum blockage, best company culture, all this sort of stuff, use an open source model for your projects. In other words, every team designs their software as if they are the main contributors, just as, you know, every single open source product that they are using works literally. They have someone who maintains it, someone who sort of drives the thing and works on most of the features, but people outside of the group can very easily come with suggestions, requests, make their own pull requests. You invite people to contribute to your coding because you're going to be able to move faster. I even go as far as to say that the entire architecture of your source code and your project should be focused on easy onboarding and offboarding of software developers, because it's the most efficient thing that you can have. And so when you have that mindset, then the thing that we are discussing, that you are asking about, becomes very natural. Because, as I've said before, guys, the code isn't yours. It's not the team's code. It's a mental construct that you are creating. The company owns the code. It's just that the way we organize our teams creates this really weird idea that this is not my system, therefore it's not my problem. This is your system, that's your problem. Yeah, you might be the primary owner of something, but you're still working for the same company. And that seems to be an alien concept to a lot of people. Because as I've said, guys, I've worked in many companies now, and usually in the large ones, it doesn't matter that you're all working for the same company. It's still tribalism. They still treat you as if you're like this criminal is trying to do like it's almost to the point where they're suspecting you of nefarious behavior just for asking to see something or so forth and so forth. And I honestly believe that has more to do with making sure that my career is safe, making sure that nothing is fishy is going on, so that I can keep my position, and all of this sort of weird stuff that people get into when they're not really sure about their position and livelihood and all this sort of stuff, right? But if you ask me, I would never get into a position like this where I would say that no to my manager that no, we can't do this because it's not our code. I would simply inform them of the fact, which is that yes, we can probably help out fixing this code, but we will need some onboarding, because the vast majority of software projects internally, like software companies, they don't structure their code base in a contributor model. They're not working like open source projects, which is a shame, because it will help most companies work much faster. You don't have to make it open source to the general public on the internet, but if you keep an open source model within your own organization, that is the most efficient model that you can possibly have for unblocking people and making sure that every team can work as fast as possible at any given moment. So what I want you to take away from this is that at least I would never argue about ownership and things like that. The only time I pull the ownership card is when people are asking us to make like a one-off solution or something like that, because what usually happens is that people come with an ad hoc request. They want us to build something that is sort of not really the thing that we are focusing on, and I know from a fact that they're going to want to maintain this system or this solution or so forth and so forth, and then all of a sudden that becomes something that our team has to own. So I would, in a situation like that, I usually ask them, what are your plans for ownership? Because if you have, like, we can build this thing for you, no problem. Afterwards, though, we have to ask, okay, are we going to continue working on this and maintain that? Because then I have to at least inform my stakeholders, my manager have to be involved and stuff like that, because basically that is going to take time from the thing that we are quote unquote supposed to be doing. And if they are fine with that, if they're, yeah, we can take on this, then of course I will take care of it. Because as I like to say, guys, it's not magic you're dealing with, it's source code. That's why I tell people, like, when they talk about Google or Facebook or whatever company, like, that they're like so bleeding edge and cutting edge, and I go, yeah, some of their projects are, but it's still just source code, guys. It's the same stacks, same tools, same everything basically for most organizations. Not everyone, of course, because we're on a spectrum here, but it's not something that is going to be without, some type of, you're going to be able to relate to it, I promise you that much. And that's the same thing that happens when you talk about touching somebody else's code in an organization. It's just source code, guys, and depending on how well the project is structured, it would just be like when you joined your own team. Alright, you're going to have to learn a little bit about how to set up the project, you're going to need to learn what practices they are using and how they want things to work and so forth, and then you make the pull request. That's all that needs to happen. And if you can do that, that is much more efficient for everybody, usually, than putting a ticket on their backlog and then hoping and praying that they have just enough capacity to get to that thing and make it happen for you. Have a great day.